It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover, as you know, the latest property news every morning, 7 days a week, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. And it's a Tuesday morning. Nice to get Monday out of the way. It is April the 23rd. Now, here's something interesting. A recent report is telling us that Australians now spend, on average, 6 hours and 14 minutes online daily, with nearly 2 hours a day on social media. TikTok leads with an impressive 42 hours per month, followed by YouTube. And I'm finding, I don't know about you, but I'm finding as I'm getting older, I just don't care about sitting online. Fortunately, it's never really been a factor in my life. I didn't grow up with social media like so many of us. Well, we should find out with our next guest what he thinks. We are catching up with Stephen Devine, who is the property partner at the agency in the inner west of Sydney. And good morning, Stephen. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. How is that online behaviour of yours?
Oh, it sounds like you're talking about my children there, Craig. Yes, I'd certainly agree. TikTok's the flavour of the month in my family. I still don't understand how it works, but again, it's just the transitioning nature of our industry, I guess.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because you have been in the industry for nearly 40 years, I think 40 years next year, and you would have seen a lot, of course. Social media, I mean, what a joke. Going back all those years ago, we had no idea what was on the horizon.
Yeah, look, there are certainly a place for it. There's no question about it. But I think the whole changing nature of the industry from, the focus now on the egos of the agents have really changed dramatically. You look at Lux listing, $1 million listing New York, it's all about the agent. It's not real. And I think it's got away from the human connection that we need to have with our buyers and our sellers and focus too much on that. But look, hey, I'm transitioning out of the business, so maybe I'm not the right person to be speaking to in regards to social media, but certainly I know it has its place. It certainly plays a big part and will continue. But I do fear sometimes about the egos of some of the agents that are putting themselves out there.
Yeah, I think that, from a younger person's point of view when they decide to come into the industry, because I note that you speak at real estate or have done at real estate training events and seminars throughout Australia as well as overseas, and you also sat on the industry advisory board of Domain. Here's the rub, you've got younger people coming in wanting to be agents, and they look to what is being portrayed on television, social media with the, it's all about me, as you say, the ego. And I think for a lot of younger people, they just sort of look at this as the norm, the standard to sort of try and attain.
Correct. And that's the problem. It's more about the look and how they, what car they drive. It's not about the substance that's behind it, about the skill. And I think that's an art that's been lost these days, is the skill in the negotiation. How do you rationalise a buyer's thinking? How do you rationalise a vendor's thinking? And I think it's an art that I think is going away, based largely on this growing trend of, people watch $1 Million Listing New York and think that I can make one phone call, one text message, get a buyer up $1 million and make, $500,000 commission. It's just not reality. The grind that you have to do to get deals done, transactions away, and again, making it feel good for the experience for all parties. That is an art. And I think it's an art that's sort of dying away. And it's a sad indictment, I think, on our industry. But hey, look, it's a great industry. Property is a wonderful vehicle to invest in. It's certainly, I've seen a lot of people, helped a lot of people indeed become, very wealthy myself through property investing. And so certainly as an industry, that's not going to change.
Yeah, and just to that point, it really does, for a lot of these younger ones wanting to get into real estate, it really does set them up to fail. As you say, they think that they can make one phone call, make $1 million sale or a $1 million listing. It doesn't work like that, but it is portrayed as easy to do, and that is why the failure rate throughout Australia is so high, where people just can't cut the mustard.
That's true. I don't know what the answer is, to be quite blunt, Craig, but it is something that has concerned me in recent years, that's for sure.
Well, we should sort of lighten up the tone a little bit and ask you, what sort of music do you like to play in your car on the way to work?
I only drive 3 minutes to work, so it's a very short
It's a song. It's a song. One song. What is it?
It's a song. I suppose you'd have to put the 80s Hunters and Collectors as always a favourite, but I have a very bohemian playlist on my Spotify account, that's for sure.
Okay, so Hunters and Collectors. What else have you got on that account?
I love Elvis. Elvis is certainly a go-to classic. Again, I've got a very strong genre. I love my Ed Sheeran. So yeah, no, I have a very eclectic bunch of music that's certainly on my playlist, that's for sure.
Yeah, so mine would be Queen, Rolling Stones and Bucks Fizz. What do you think about that?
I think we're probably of a similar demographic by the sounds of it, Craig.
Bucks Fizz, no, that is definitely not off my list, although they did win the Eurovision Song Contest with that song, Making Your Mind Up, and I think we're both old enough to remember that, unfortunately.
That's sad, but true.
All right, we are talking to Stephen Devine. We'll come back after this and talk more property.
Each week, we bring you in-depth real estate discussions, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast.
Hey, good morning to Damien and Kate up in Darwin listening this morning. Now, they say that they've moved from Melbourne at the end of last year and have been finishing off their saving for their first home, getting ready to, as they say, pounce into the property market and buy. Hey, that's pretty exciting, Damien and Kate. Do let us know how you get on with that. And of course, you're not alone. There are many people moving into Darwin, and we must speak to Will, our man on the ground. We haven't spoken to him this year up there in Darwin, so we'll make a point of doing that shortly. And just a reminder, if you'd like to email us through, you can do that. Our email address is mypropertypodcast@gmail.com. And the Australian housing market remains, of course, this whole cornerstone of national wealth, with residential properties valued at $10.4 trillion. That was by late last year, as per the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And despite interest rate hikes driving the cash rate to 4.35%, property prices surprisingly rose, didn't they, last year, due to the strong demand outpacing constrained supply. And Domain, they're forecasting a 5 to 7% national housing price increase for 2024.
Let's fuel your passion for property together. Join us, along with our industry experts, to help inspire and inform your next real estate decision.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday. We are talking to Stephen Devine, who is the property partner at the agency in the inner west of Sydney. Just before we get on to real estate, your area, very big on rugby, isn't it? St Patrick's Rugby Club. I think you're quite heavily involved in that club.
I'm a life member there. My involvement is sort of, again, you've got to let the next generation take the reins, and they're doing a great job down there.
Now, let's just talk about a recent sale that you did. I note that it went way above. We'll talk about the actual price where this went, but you were dealing with a 97-year-old vendor who had owned the property for decades and decades and decades. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, I've been in the family for 70 years. To be candid, it wasn't the 97-year-old per se I was dealing with. I mean, I was dealing with her son, who had power of attorney, obviously at that age. I don't know if she had the full gravity of the end-up price that she achieved, but I know she was very happy with the result. The family were in tears, and it was just a great, good feel story and a lovely family to deal with, and I was very happy for the result they ended up achieving.
Gee, what was the ticket price back in the day? Do you know some of the historical data when that property was purchased?
It does remind me very much of my late father, who started real estate in 1955 in the inner west, and I've still got one of my most cherished possessions is his listing book from 1955, and you scroll through it, you could see properties that were selling for £3,000-4,000 that today would be worth $4 or $5 million. And I asked the perennial question, my old man, when he was alive, and 70 years later, nothing changes in our industry, when he gave the answer that I think is an absolute classic. And I said, well, why didn't you bloody well buy one? His answer was, well, they were too expensive. And I think it's an indictment of don't wait to own real estate and wait. That's how you'll make money.
Yes, absolutely. Now, back in terms of this sale, I think it went well over the reserve. So how are you finding the market at the moment, just off the back of that?
Yeah, look, that particular sale in Canberra was a very tightly held area. And I think the number of people we had through there, we had 170 groups through in the 3 or 4 week lead up, well over 20 contracts. We had a dozen people registered. Again, I think that's just indicative of that particular suburb is so tightly held. There's only been 3 sales this year in the whole for a house, and there were 23 sales for the whole of last year. So again, it's a very tightly held suburb, and it doesn't surprise me. It was original condition. It did need a lot of work, which sort of did deter some buyers because of the unknown of just how much they may end up having to spend, and finding builders prepared to quote and do the job. That's another challenge, throughout, I think, Australia at the moment. But nonetheless, we're guiding initially 2 to 2.1 million. We had a reserve of 2.2. Competition kicked in. They listened to our advice, was, look, you just need to let this run. We're not accepting any pre-auction offers. Again, it was a connection through school that I met that family, and we'd managed the property for a number of years. They listened, they trusted our advice, and they were rewarded with an amazing sale of $2,610,000, way above what they would have considered taking. And, again, just a great outcome. But look, across Sydney, the market you can't just simply say, what is the market doing in Sydney at the moment? There are some pockets that are doing exceptionally well. Others are struggling. And I think in general terms, unit sales of high-rise buildings that have got strata issues, we're having challenges getting those moved. But properties like, tightly held suburbs like that and tightly held locations are going exceptionally well. It's a very mixed market at the moment, but I'd say I'd still rather be a seller than a buyer right now.
Yeah, and those strata issues that you are talking about, they just seem to be just rearing their head every now and again, and bang, there's another one that has a bunch of issues and sort of people being asked to, yes, you've got to dig deep into your pocket.
An example of that, a fairly high-profile vendor of mine owned a property in Croydon. They paid $950, I think it was, back in 2019. There were strata issues in the building. They just wanted to, again, they were smart enough, business-minded enough just to, look, get what we can, let's get this moved on. We let that go for $760, and he was happy to get it moved. And again, most people would say, oh man, that's crazy loss. But again, with these strata issues out there in some buildings, it is affecting it by that much in many cases.
All right, Steve. Well, great to catch up with you and find out a little bit about your musical choices, as well as some of the history that dates back almost to 40 years. Enjoy your Tuesday, and thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
My pleasure, Craig. Have a great day.
Don't navigate the real estate market alone. Let us help guide you in the world of real estate every day. Make better informed decisions with the latest news and insights.
So much about what makes a building sustainable, and very few buildings are really sustainable, but what we can do is make buildings super low energy use. We do that by making sure that they actually just use the weather around them, the climate, to its best advantage.
Another really big aspect to all of this is buying a property that is north-facing. Now, today, 2024, people have almost sort of forgotten that golden rule with the sunshine when buying properties. Are you finding that from an architectural point of view?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find quite entertaining, I guess, in a way, is that when an architect says a house is north facing, what we mean is that our living areas, or the spaces that we spend the most daytime hours in, are on the north side of the house. Those rooms that we spend the most time in, our living area, living, dining, kitchen spaces, have those spaces on the north side of the house so that you're getting all of that fantastic sunlight in for free.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.